Okay, well, welcome back. Our next guest is Michael Robinson, and over the last 4 years, Michael has been responsible for managing the growth and strategic engagement with governments in 80 countries throughout the Middle East and Africa, managing a team of aligning Microsoft solutions in education, healthcare, defense, public safety, and e-government. One of the reasons that Michael is just a wonderful guest in addition to our show is that he provides a unique look at the ways that BDPA can improve its chances with corporate America. Now, I recently found out that Michael has just taken on a new position within Microsoft, which he'll share with us a little bit more. And Michael has been involved with BDPA for a number of years. For 2 years, he served as BDPA's New York chapter president very early in his career. And, Michael, I wanted to thank you and welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much, Franne. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you again. Well, Michael, I know that you have had many experiences with BDPA, and you've, in fact, been part of a number of leadership opportunities. So one of the questions that I had was, how has BDPA assisted and or helped you in your rise to the boardroom?
Yeah, so I think BDPA offers a great experience for leadership development. And I think it's one of the things that BDPA, quite frankly, doesn't tout well enough because I think the opportunities for volunteer leadership definitely has a correlation to your success and growth and development in the corporate world as well. And so I could say it's almost 30 years now in terms of my involvement with BDPA. As you mentioned, I was the BDPA president in New York for 2 years, but prior to that held a number of, chapter positions and supported it wherever I could. But each opportunity afforded me the ability to learn something new, to network, to, continue to grow and develop. I also was responsible for, or one of the architects of the BDPA Education and Technology Foundation. And so I was also an early board member there. And so I think that was probably my first board experience on a nonprofit board. So again, just as I moved on in my career and served on a number of nonprofit and a couple of for-profit boards, I've been able to draw on that experience.
So tell us a little bit more about the experiences then that you've had with Microsoft. I mean, I mentioned in your bio that you've been in 80 countries in just one of the roles that you had with Microsoft. How has that been? What was that like?
So as you pointed out, I just started a new role and moved back to the U.S., but for 4 years I lived in the Middle East. I lived in Dubai and covered the region of Middle East and Africa. And as you said, it was approximately 80 countries, depending on, what was going on in the world and whether countries were embargoed or not. But it was a very exciting experience. I learned a great deal. I came to that role with a good deal of experience in sales and solution development and working with, large organizations with Microsoft technology. However, just the diversity of that region, again, it's over 80 countries. It's over 1.5 billion people that are impacted by the technology that we sold there. You have almost every religion that you can think of. You have potentially 95% of the world's conflict that happens in that region. And so it just was a great learning experience, both personally and professionally, around the cultural differences that people have.
And when we had a chance to talk a few days ago, and you mentioned a term that I hadn't heard before, and maybe others have not heard it as well, and it was cultural dexterity. And I was hoping that you could elaborate, sort of give a definition, and then connect that to a skill set that maybe BDPA members might want to focus on.
Yeah, it's great, Fran. And as I mentioned to you before, I can't take credit for that term. It was my friends at Global Novations, that firm that does consulting on diversity initiatives, and I've worked with them for a number of years. However, the concept is relatively simple. It's that, in order for you to be effective in any environment, you have to understand the cultural dynamics that exist in that environment. And so, one of the things that I took away from that and managing such a diverse area was, you had to prepare. You had to make sure that you understood the nuances of the culture, as well as, how you would respond. And so in many cultures, what you take for granted or something that, might not be an issue for you can become a significant issue in different cultures. So, just doing your research, doing your homework. In my case, I would speak to the local teams to make sure that there was nothing that I was missing. I had the great fortune to meet with kings, queens, and presidents of many of those countries. And so just the protocol and understanding the culture was very important in terms of my success in that region.
For BDPA members, what is transferable?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of things that are transferable. When you talk about cultural dexterity moving from one country to the next, the same principles, I believe, apply when you move from one organization to the next. And so, I think there's a strong corollary between understanding your environment, being able to sense, being able to research the culture of an organization before you join it. If you're in any customer facing roles in the technology field, again, I think the same principles apply. So these are lessons that I continue to use not only in my professional life but in my personal life as well. And so again, the concept is simple, but it's about doing the preparation, being an open and active listener, being able to respond or to read when dynamics change in an environment. And so I think those are all great qualities that anybody can apply. And if you're really interested, I suggest that you maybe go out to the Global Novations website, and I'm sure they have a ton of material on cultural dexterity out there.
Okay, that's a great reference point. And one of the questions that is popping up actually multiple times on the chat is, given that you had an opportunity to be in the Middle East and Africa, how might BDPA evolve its mission to further support people of African descent that are living in Africa?
Yeah, again, I'm very passionate about this topic, so thank you for the question. There are numerous opportunities for BDPA members or African Americans in general in terms of supporting the growth and development of technology in Africa. A few things are happening in Africa now that is really allowing the adoption of technology. One is mobility, the proliferation of mobile devices. And so, actually per capita, I think there are more mobile devices on the continent of Africa than, many of the Western developed countries in the world. So mobility is a big driver around both applications and technology adoption on the continent of Africa. The other is the advent, or I would say the increased availability of broadband across the continent. So, the sea line cables back to Europe and the U.S. that have enabled broadband, higher broadband on the continent has really started to create an environment that, they're thinking about things like, offshoring, call centers, those kinds of things that, traditionally we think about India or Russia or those areas. You have a large English-speaking population, and so there's a lot of opportunity there. The other is there's also a trend, particularly I see it in Microsoft, where we hire Africans and we bring them to the U.S. to develop their skills, and then they have a desire to go back home and share those skills on the continent. So I think there's an opportunity for us to work with those individuals, help them develop and take their talents back. The other point that I would make is that there is, no shortage of opportunities to do community-based things in Africa, whether it be building schools or other types of missionary work. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to get involved and really make that continent, realize its full potential.
So earlier you mentioned that you were involved with the BDPA Education and Technology Foundation when it got started. And as BDPA continues to expand those efforts, what are ways that BDPA can be even more effective in reaching out to corporate America moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's, BDPA, obviously because of its long history and the level of corporate support that it's garnered over the years is obviously relevant in corporate America. So I think that has always been true. But, as other things in our industry, things change rapidly. So I think it's a matter of staying relevant, staying ahead of the technology curve, being able to provide, resources to the corporate environment that are well-trained, that are well-skilled, and that are, thought leaders in the industry. And I think BDPA has a history of developing significant thought leaders and skilled people. The high school computer competition is a great example. I'm waiting anxiously to hear from the young man from 1991 to see what he's up to today. But, developing that level of skills, I think, is really important that BDPA continues that they articulate it to the companies, that they work in collaboration with the corporations to make sure that those people are, embedded in those organizations and are recognized as high performers, and that the fact that they were, assisted in their development by BDPA is a strong way to do that. Outside of that, I think another area is, being relevant in your local communities, because most corporations are looking for a connection to the community, to those demographics in terms of, how, those communities resonate or identify with those organizations. And so the fact that we can connect, major corporations to the community is another huge advantage to BDPA, I believe.
Wow. Well, Michael, I am definitely going to invite you back for a future show. I know that we have 2 additional guests, and I really want to thank you. And before you go, I'd love for you to just give us one final thought, that you would like to leave the audience with.
Yeah, so I think, your involvement or people's involvement in BDPA is a great investment of their time and efforts. However, it's the people that make BDPA great and make it the organization that continues to evolve and support African Americans in their pursuit of in the IT industry. And so I would encourage, all of the members to make sure that they're contributing, that they remain passionate about both technology and the advancement of our people. And, this is a great environment to do that in. So, continue to push forward.
Well, thank you, Michael.